is up, wrestling fans? This is Kayfabe Chronicles with your host, JP. You know what? I've been thinking a lot after WrestleMania 34. Not the pay-per-view itself. I enjoyed most of it, but there was something that didn't sit right with me. For many folks, WrestleMania is like Christmas, and with the annual visit from the jolly old elf himself, The Undertaker. Now, The Undertaker, without a doubt, has cemented an unbeatable legacy in regards to a streak that streamed for over 20 wins before a single defeat at WrestleMania. Now, over the years, many people would look forward to the Undertaker match at WrestleMania, me included. Now, this past WrestleMania got me thinking. Yes, the Undertaker had a match versus John Cena, and it wasn't very good. Now, before anyone forms a lynch mob, hear me out. If it was based surely on storytelling, then yeah, I'd give it 5 stars. The entire concept of John Cena wanting a match so badly that he would challenge The Undertaker, the build up each week, to see if The Undertaker would respond, and then the night itself of John Cena sitting in the crowd only to find out last minute that his challenge was accepted, it was awesome. However, the match was short and unfulfilling. I felt like they could have done way more better match-wise to conclude the story. And then this got me wondering, how many of Undertaker's matches at WrestleMania were actually any good? Considering that he's had over 20 of them, there has to be a couple stinkers in there as well as the classics. So, you know what? This week, we're going to cover the history of The Undertaker and his legendary streak. The year was 1991, and The Undertaker had recently made his debut at the 1990 Survivor Series. No one had seen anything like The Undertaker before, so how else would you want to get him over? Naturally, you would pair him up with a seasoned vet. Undertaker squared off against Superfly Jimmy Snuka. Overall, the match wasn't anything special. Undertaker did his thing, used his special undead powers to no-sell and overcome the old-school vet. Now, back then, the streak obviously didn't exist, so we didn't put any investment into this. So, since this was his very first match, I'm not going to actually grade it. So, the score clock, it's going to stay like that. Consider it a pilot episode of sorts. We're really not too sure what to expect yet. But the following year, The Undertaker developed way more as a character. He was conducting more interviews, he was paired up with a phenomenal manager in Paul Bearer, and was setting a great storyline with Jake the Snake, which resulted in him doing his face turn. It's funny because I'm guessing Taker was never even supposed to be a face. Like, on paper, it doesn't make sense for him to be a good guy. But yet the people really liked it. Now, WrestleMania 8 was nowhere near the caliber of all the previous WrestleManias. It also didn't help that the main event was changed because, for some weird reason, the powers that be thought that Ric Flair versus Hulk Hogan wouldn't work. Now, Jake the Snake had wrestled a famed career all over the US, and his tenure in the WWE at this point was near its end. Now, according to Jake, during an interview in his biography, Pick Your Poison, he stated that he was in talks with Vince to be brought on board creative booking-wise, and the deal was set. But apparently the deal fell through and Jake asked for his release after this match. So I guess it's safe to say, to sum it up, Undertaker sent Jake on his way to greener pastures. Now, I enjoyed the crap out of this match. The storytelling was what really hooked me in. The DDT at this time was a devastating finisher that when Jake locked it in, it was game over. So when Jake hit the DDT and assumed victory, and then The Undertaker sat up like nothing happened. Jake, as well as everyone watching, their pants. No one expected that. And by the look on Jake's face, neither did he. Long story short, a tombstone later, the Snake was sent packing and Undertaker reigned supreme. So with all things taken into account, I freaking love this match. Everything about it, from the storyline to when Undertaker sat up after the DDT, it was mind-blowing. So safe to say this one is definitely classic. Now, by this time The Undertaker was huge. However, he wasn't main event huge yet. He hadn't really been in the main title picture since Survivor Series 1991, a few years earlier. Now, the 93 Royal Rumble was the very first time that the winner of the Royal Rumble was guaranteed a title shot at WrestleMania. Now, The Undertaker seemed like a natural fit to fit into this title role, so he of course entered the Royal Rumble. But alas, other plans were in place. The Undertaker entered at 15, and though he only lasted a bit over 4 minutes, he didn't eliminate 4 superstars during his time in the match. Then all of a sudden, a giant dude in a unitard with fake fur appears out of nowhere and eliminates The Undertaker. Why? Because they needed an intimidating force to feud with The Undertaker, and there was no one on the roster at that time. So they hired this guy, Giant Gonzalez. He was a former basketball player turned wrestler. He had some experience in WCW as El Gigante, but that doesn't mean a ton. Sure, he was impressive to look at height-wise, but his physical look was non-existent. Ever wonder why they had airbrushed muscles all over his tights? And it also didn't help that he moved with the speed and grace of a tectonic plate. Long story short, he was garbage, and you can use that excuse that tall wrestlers don't move graceful. But your argument is highly invalid. So this set up their match at everyone's favorite WrestleMania, good old number 9, and the match was unadulterated go. Undertaker tried his best to work with the big guy, but couldn't get anything out of him. He didn't move well, he didn't sell well, his in-ring work was that of a Greek warrior who'd just seen Medusa, stiff as a board. Even when he pulled a cloth of chloroform and choked the Undertaker out, thus getting himself disqualified, it looked like a junior high school production of Les Miserables. This is without a doubt a skid mark on the streak that the Undertaker and the fans want to forget. So in case you can't tell, now WrestleMania 10 was a huge event. Unfortunately, The Undertaker had to miss it due to injury, but WWE wrote him out with a very clever storyline. See, previous at the Royal Rumble, he had fought then-champion Yokozuna in a casket match. And of course, The Undertaker did lose that match, but it took the entire heel roster to run out, interfere, and beat him up before they threw him into the casket. Now, after the match, while The Undertaker was sealed in it, he gave this really eerie promo, and then floated away into the heavens. Now, essentially, this was to write him out for his injury. But of course, he did come back shortly after that in order to fight himself at SummerSlam, but really not going to talk about that. And of course, he did also have his rematch of the casket match at the Survivor Series, but once again, not really talking about that either. So of course, Undertaker missed WrestleMania 10, so therefore, injury defeated The Undertaker. Not you, Brock Lesnar, injury. Suck on that, Lesnar. Now, WrestleMania 11 Celebrity Fest had The Undertaker taking on recently returned from a long hiatus King Kong Bundy. This is a weird one because King Kong Bundy was a big deal back in his early days of his career. He had a record-breaking squash match at WrestleMania 1, competed in the main event the following WrestleMania, wrestled a really confusing mixed tag match at WrestleMania 3, and then he was gone. Now at this point, King Kong Bundy had come back and joined the $1 Million Corporation, so he did have some backup. Now the match itself was nothing to jump up and down about. Did have a special guest referee, former baseball player Larry Young, but the match was very similar in styles to Taker's Mania 9 match. He was in the ring with a guy who just couldn't move up to the speed of The Undertaker. Now, don't get me wrong, King Kong Bundy is a legitimate great wrestler, but that is when he is against jobbers, smaller opponents. The moves appeared very awkward. Even the finish came out of left field. The Undertaker won with a flying clothesline. Now, after the match, Kama, who was also part of the $1 Million Corporation at the time, came down, beat up Paul Bearer, and stole the urn, thus rendering The Undertaker powerless. He would go on to melt down the urn into a badass gold chain and set up a very long and boring feud between the two, because, Now, WrestleMania 12 is really remembered for a lot of things. The famous Iron Man match between Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, the return of the Ultimate Warrior, Razor Ramon being unable to fight due to personal things, so Roddy Piper would step in and take his place. And for some reason, WWE really thought that a wide shot of a white Bronco driving down the Hollywood Strip was funny and in good taste. Now, Undertaker took on Diesel in this pay-per-view, and to be honest, I really don't remember why. Seriously, I'm like a human encyclopedia, and I really have no memory of why this feud actually happened. Even rewatching this match, it really doesn't shed light on why this is actually going on. A classic bout between two big men. One having a moveset that totaled less than one has fingers on a hand, and the other being the Phenom The Undertaker. The match, if I was to grade it, falls somewhere in the middle of The Undertaker's Mania matches. The fact that he was able to lift Diesel up and safely perform the Tombstone was really impressive. But it's mainly due to the fact that I have no recollection of why this match even happened, that I'm not overly moved by it, so... Now, WrestleMania 13 had some real weird stipulations heading into it. It was the first WrestleMania in a while where the challenger, i.e. The Undertaker, wasn't the winner of the Royal Rumble. That year, the Royal Rumble was won by Stone Cold Steve Austin. During the Rumble, Austin was eliminated cleanly, but the refs didn't see it due to some ruckus going on outside the ring during the elimination. Stone Cold ran back in and eliminated Bret Hart to secure his right to the title shot. Now, due to the unfairness of this, it was decided that In Your House prior to WrestleMania, there would be a fatal four-way pitting Bret Hart versus Stone Cold versus Vader versus The Undertaker, where the winner would face Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania for the title. Now, here's where it gets even more confusing. 3 days before this event, Michaels was forced to vacate the title due to injury. So now the fatal four would actually determine the new champion to go into WrestleMania. Bret Hart was successful by last eliminating The Undertaker, but his title reign would only last for 1 day, for he would drop the title the very next night to Psycho Sid, thanks to outside interference by Stone Cold. Now, since these two now had some real bad blood, they would eventually meet each other at WrestleMania 13 in the submission match, but it's also considered the most famous double turn in wrestling history. Now, what does this have to do with The Undertaker, you ask? With Sid now as the champion, he needed an opponent at WrestleMania, so naturally, the new #1 contender would be the last person who was eliminated in the last title match, i.e. The Undertaker. Did you guys get all that? Good? We can go on? Okay. Now, unfortunately, the submission match that I mentioned earlier on stole the night, so therefore no one even cared about The Undertaker taking on Sid. And that really sucks because Undertaker won the championship, and no one even remembers it. So unfortunately... Now, WrestleMania 14, I really enjoyed how The Undertaker was booked in this. He went against his brother Kane for the first time since the storyline was introduced, and holy crap was this awesome. At last we had a match with two big guys that both had power and also moved with the speed and agility of large cats. I have nothing bad to say about this match. The build-up was great, the fear that The Undertaker at last had a worthy opponent, and the fact it took numerous tombstones to win the match make this one of my favorite Undertaker matches. But JP, if you love it so much, then why aren't you talking about it? 1, this video is getting really long. And 2, I only linger on crap and bullshit, and that match was freaking legit. So how do you follow it up? WrestleMania 15 with a Hell in a Cell match with Big Boss Man. This match, this angle, everything about this. As a kid, I loved the Big Boss Man, and nothing made me happier than when he returned, even though it was part of the corporation. But we all make mistakes. Now, this is the Mania where people actually started to notice the streak. I only remember this because it was a trivia question in a WrestleMania magazine that I got leading up to WrestleMania 15, simply asking what wrestler had the best win record at WrestleMania. I didn't know at the time because it was something I'd never really thought about. Sure enough, the answer was The Undertaker. And yeah, I had to do some research, but yeah, it checked out. He had never lost at WrestleMania prior to this. So now, The Undertaker and WrestleMania started to hold some interest. Granted, though, this storyline was piss poor. The corporation not liking that The Undertaker was leading the ministry to overtake the corporation, so they send the Big Boss Man to take out the leader in a Hell in a Cell. Why would anyone challenge The Undertaker to a Hell in a Cell match? Now, this match was crap. Neither guy worked well with each other, or even complimented each other, and the ending with the Boss Man hanging from a noose as the cage rose actually does really leave a bad taste. And that says a lot coming from me. So yeah, WrestleMania 15. Pure Now, WrestleMania 2000, or as I like to call it, the original all-day event filled with filler and no singles matches. Seriously, look it up. It's all multi-tag bullshit, whatever. Anyway, The Undertaker did not compete in this one either due to injury. And thank God he didn't. Like, I think this one's even worse than WrestleMania 15. Okay, and to be honest, I can't really crap on WrestleMania 15 because the main event of that one was actually really, really good. So, whatever. WrestleMania 2000, no Undertaker match, on to the next one. WrestleMania X7. Yeah, I don't need to explain how good an event this was. Almost every match was complete gold, and The Undertaker's was no exception. Leading up to this Mania, Triple H boasted he had beaten everyone in the company, cue The Undertaker, who challenged Trips right then and there, and of course Hunter wanted nothing to do with it. For the next few weeks, the two would egg each other on by interfering in each other's matches, and even assaulting each other backstage. One incident even got The Undertaker arrested. Stephanie got a restraining order against The Undertaker, but that didn't stop Kane from capturing Stephanie and attempting to throw her off a balcony unless Triple H would accept Undertaker's challenge at Mania. So being the man that he is and defending his lady's honor, the match was on. This match went everywhere. In-ring, out-of-ring, in the crowd, on top of scaffolding, and poor veteran ref Mike Chioda is in the middle going through Ref Bump City. Seriously, no clue how many times he ate shit in this match. There was one part in which everyone thought the streak was going to end, when Triple H grabbed his trusty sledgehammer just before being put in the last ride. He clocked the Undertaker right on the head, busting him wide open. A bloodied Undertaker would kick out and manage to fight back to get the last ride hook to seal his victory and move the streak up to 9-0. Now, this was the first time I actually felt like the streak was going to end. Both guys gave it their all, and the ending sequence was freaking badass. Now, The Undertaker faced legendary Ric Flair in a street fight at WrestleMania 18. And if you guys are keeping count, this is The Undertaker's 10th WrestleMania. The storyline was freaking amazing. Ric Flair interfered in The Undertaker's match in No Way Out, costing him the match. Now, this led to The Undertaker being so infatuated with fighting Ric Flair that he would stop at nothing to get that match. Ric Flair kept denying him. The Undertaker beat up Arn Anderson in order to get Ric's attention. Eventually, Ric Flair even found Ric's son David training and beat the crap out of him while videotaping it so Ric could watch. Ric Flair unfortunately had to defend his family's honor and take on The Undertaker. This match was classic Ric Flair at his finest. Styling, profiling, flopping on his face, and crimson masking like a boss. He started off like a bat out of hell for the first part of the match. Heck, he even busted The Undertaker open. Not as bad as his blood loss, but at least he tried. It was a classic battle of David and Goliath. Flair was overpowered for most of the match, and had a ton of hope spots, but the no DQ would play into effect later on, as the dirtiest player in the game did what he does best. He eventually would get a hold of Undertaker's lead pipe from his motorcycle and pretty much even the score. Heck, even good old Arn Anderson came in and tried to knock out The Undertaker, but The Undertaker kept getting up, and getting up, and getting up. Just like the Taker of old. Even after numerous chair shots, The Undertaker would secure the victory with a tombstone and advance the streak to a perfect 10-0. So with that, we're going to end part 1 of this history lesson at 10. I think it's a good even number to stop with. So let's take a look at that score clock. Now with our one neutral vote, you can see that we have 4 classics compared against 5 pieces of dog. So where does the rest of The Undertaker's matches line up? We're just going to have to wait until part 2 of the history of the streak. As always, if you guys like what you saw, make sure to crush that like button, hit subscribe, and remember to click that bell notification. Follow us on Twitter using the name tag below, and also remember to check out the Facebook page, also in the description. Until next time, this is JP from Kayfabe Chronicles, and I will see you guys next time.